Not gammon. Some say that's nerd fun. I think was that it? Was that right?
I just love how that sounds. No fun. It sounds much more serious than nerd fun.
Yeah, it definitely does. Hi, welcome to the blank space.
Hola.
Hey,
Nerd fun.
you've returned.
Nerd
Why?
fun.
Thank you.
Nerd fun reminds me immediately of like LARPing or something. Like
Okay.
it's not, I don't jump to like video games or reading. I jump to like basically an extreme of like nerd fun.
Oh, okay. That's fair. That's
I like that you're just like that's fair. That sounds about right.
yeah. Once you put it that way, it makes me think. Yeah, yeah. I guess that makes a little sense.
I guess it might just be because we're in the nerd fandom that
And so you
basically.
think there's lesser nerds than us?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Like there are plenty of people I'd know where if I said, "Oh, what would be nerd fun to you?" and they'd be like, "I don't know, playing video games for a couple hours, or reading, or going to a Star Trek convention." Which still, okay, that to me is nerd fun.
Okay.
But if you asked me specifically, I'd be like, I don't know, LARPing.
So you think what people think of as nerd-ish is like a step below what they are?
Oh no no no! I just think it's more surface level,
Oh, okay. It doesn't matter whatsoever.
and we're
That's what
like
you're
in
getting at.
me and you are like in the deep web of nerd. Well,
Mm,
they're in like the surface level Facebook.
mm,
We're like Bitcoin trading while they're just sitting above playing Farmville.
mm. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down.
I hope you are, because I really don't know where that metaphor went.
I
It went
mean,
to Bitcoin trading.
I metaphorically understand where you're going. Does that count?
It counts in my book.
Yeah, I hope we're reading the same book. Anyway,
So how are your Bitcoin farms doing, Ant?
they have gotten me as much effort as I put into life.
Have you ever legitimately tried to look up Bitcoin stuff, like either how to do it or just what it is
I
really?
mean, I know what it is, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, no, not just like oh, it's a cryptocurrency, but like really what it is, like what
Yeah,
people are
yeah,
doing for
it's
it.
yeah, it's basically them setting up bots that record transactions of bitcoins, if I'm correct, right?
Wait, hold on, pause. Okay, so Bitcoin. To get Bitcoin, you need to record transactions of other people using Bitcoin.
Not that's not right. I know you have to record some sort of transaction or something along those
Okay, because I
lines.
was gonna say like that just basically turns into a case of like the snake
Yeah,
eating
they
itself.
they
Like, how did it
they
start if it's recording
they have
itself?
some sort of thing they're recording, right? And they have to either do it personally or set up bots to do it, right? And it deals with verifying, I guess, other people's work. It's something along those lines.
Yeah,
That's
it's.
the gist of what I know
I mean,
on.
it's not far from what I know. I mean, for me, it's basically offering processing power to someone to get a currency that doesn't really. God, just it hurts my head whenever I think about it. Because every once in a while, someone will bring up like, "Oh, Bitcoin, it's this crazy new thing that's going to do great." I'm like, no, it's a fake currency that could be replicated infinite amounts of times. So that means there can never be an economy around it.
Actually, that's not true though.
Okay, please explain, because like every
There is
time I
a
ask.
there is a finite amount of bitcoins that can be mined. That's what I've understood, right? Like there's only so like as time goes on, it's harder to mine bitcoins just because you can only mine so many. Apparently, just because that's how the program itself works, right?
I I genuinely don't know. That's the thing,
Okay,
because
so
the way I
that's
understood it
that's
was
that's
like,
the gist of it. Okay,
okay,
from what I've gathered on my information from Reddit. Um,
from listening to Bitcoin traders for a while there. Like the thing is, like the way I understand it is you trade your processing power of your computer to
no,
give to this program or to a certain thing to earn this
No,
currency.
you actually are recording some sort of ledger, it's really confusing. Okay,
That's
right?
the thing. Like,
I don't know enough to talk about it, to be honest. And from what you've been telling me, you don't either. What was
I
our
I
point again?
definitely don't. I mean, I anytime I ask somebody about Bitcoin and they know any bit of information, I want to drag it out of them.
Hmm.
I want to drag it out of them like, I don't know, something that drags things. Like, I want to know more about it because it seems like such an interesting thing that nobody really knows about and apparently can actually buy things.
Yeah,
I think what is it? Like the Microsoft store allows you to buy things in Bitcoin. It's like it it's not like, oh, I'm buying drugs on like Craigslist or something. It's like, no, I could buy literal physical products with it, but nobody knows how to get it. I don't know, man. Bitcoin's super interesting to me, but nobody really knows enough about it to tell me about it.
I mean, it's something worth studying. I should probably get on that.
Audience, give me links to what Bitcoin is, and please, for the love of God, just don't tell me to go to the dark web. Who the hell knows how to get to the dark web?
So, yeah, we had a topic, right?
Bitcoin, yes. No, we definitely did. We definitely did. This was actually a recommendation by you at one point.
Hmm. Basically, going back to games and seeing if they're still as good as you remember, and most of the times it's not.
Well, all right. I won't say most of the time. I have plenty of games I can go back to that I have good memories of that I could still play. But let's delve into the shit a little bit.
Okay.
Give me an example of something you played that you went back to.
Okay, so pretty much any of the Europa or Universalis games or any of the old Paradox games, they just don't feel as good anymore because they've just made so many iterations on basically mechanics and all that kind of stuff. They just don't feel right anymore because you just know
Mm.
that there's better ways to do it. See, that's the thing, right? For some games, going back isn't like for some games going back, you're not going to find like unique things. You're just going to be finding the stuff you've done already. It's not as good.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
Like when you're a child, you have more tolerance for this kind of thing than you do
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Like what they were doing back then, they were still learning how to put this thing together correctly, and yeah, yeah, it was not put together well in the first place. Especially that's mostly dealing though with games that are like iterations, right?
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, like when you like games that have more recent versions of it seem to be better
Mm-hmm.
designed for you currently.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like I was gonna say, like a lot of the ones I would point to are examples of that. Like what's it called? Like I would argue some of the older management games I really liked as a kid
Mm-hmm.
are still decent games. Like the thing is, a lot of the games I'm thinking of right now aren't abysmal. They're not like I go back to them like, what was I thinking? Like it was a
Mm-hmm.
case of this is really weird and hard to control. And the only
Mm-hmm.
reason I'm good at it is because I played it as a child.
Yeah,
Um,
I found that was definitely true for one that I enjoyed. It was called Sim Earth, right?
hmm,
And it was absolutely fun to play when I was a kid, right? Now going back to it, the controls just don't work.
yeah.
They just don't. I don't know how I did that as a kid, right? Like it's different going back with video games, just because you actually have to work with them, unlike older movies or other types of media, where you can just sit back and enjoy. You don't
Hmm.
have to wrestle with the controls, be like, "Oh God, why did they do this?" Or "Man, thank God for joysticks."
Yeah. Like for example, one of the things in particular I would point at is I played older versions of Roller Coaster Tycoon and Mall Tycoon,
Mm-hmm.
and both of those games run okay. They're definitely not awful, but
Okay.
like you play a modern management game, and so many more things make sense.
Mm.
Like you play City Skylines or Prison Architect. You play these games, and for some reason, just it clicks. The mechanics and the teachings and everything kind of click together. While the game design of these older games, I want to say just wasn't there yet.
Mm.
Like it feels like some of these games were designed before people kind of realized what draws people into games.
Mm.
It sounds weird, but it certainly is. It's certainly how I feel about it. Um, there are there are plenty of games that I played a lot of as a kid that I look back on and just think, man, I don't know why I enjoyed this at
Mm.
all. One example is I had what's it called? I had a couple of like license games as a kid.
Mm.
Um, there's one in particular I think of called The Muppets License to Croak. I think. Hold on, let me look it up to make sure I'm saying the exact title correctly. License to Croak. There we go. I'm sorry. Muppets in Spy Muppets. License to Croak. Um,
Okay, that's a
so,
name.
so, it's a game where you take on Kermit as a spy who is trying to solve some mystery, and it is just so bad. It feels abysmal to play. And it's basically just like an on rails kind of thing. It's not like you're actually solving a murder or solving a thing. It's like just do these things and then you will get to the end of the game.
Hmm.
And it doesn't even have like the signature Muppet humor to it. It just feels like a really terrible like license game.
Okay.
Oh, it's so bad. So bad.
All right.
Um
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Um,
yeah.
I remember trying to get like those. What is it? I think like McDonald's had like or like something like that where they had like a game you could take home or something. And man,
Oh, are you
I
talking
couldn't.
about Sneak King?
Oh yeah, stuff like that.
Those games are just so ridiculous.
They were ridiculous little things of garbage, but they were our garbage.
You know, that's the funny thing. I don't have a childhood memory of that. I have a memory after everyone realized that the games were terrible and they were lined up at GameStops all over the place for a
Hmm.
dollar playing it. But I remember being kind of mad when I was younger not getting one of these games at like a Burger King or something because I
Hmm.
wanted to try them so badly.
Yeah.
Not even because they were terrible. I just thought like, ooh, a cheap game. I want to play that. Oh, that looks like so much fun. Thank God I didn't. Thank God. Ugh. Um, I actually have a really weird one that I don't know if I could go back and enjoy it really.
Oh.
So I played. So one of the bigger consoles in my life was the PS2.
Okay.
It was mainly N64, PS2, Xbox 360. And there was some stuff mixed in there, but those are like the primary consoles I played on for a long while.
Okay.
PS2, I had a lot of great games for the PS2. I had like Resident Evil 4, Destroy All Humans, the Tony Hawk games, great
Hmm.
games. I remember when I was a kid being obsessed with making a game,
Okay.
making my own video game. And I think my parents took that to heart because they bought me RPG Maker for the PS2.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh my god. That was such a complicated mess. The game came with a strategy guide. I don't know if it actually came with it or my mom bought it or whatever, but like the strategy guide was thicker than any strategy guide I'd ever seen for a game. Every page was trying to teach you how to do the things in the game. It was so it was the absolute wrong thing to put on the PS2. That is
Man, I
like
mean, like I picked that up on a Steam sale one time just to play around with it, and I still don't know what I'm doing. I can't imagine trying to work with that with a controller.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Is like, I can absolutely imagine on a PC, RPG Maker, Game Maker, those kind of games, like working decently well and like you being able to grasp it.
Hmm.
Jamming that into like a PS2. I think that it didn't even come with like a default adventure, I don't think, because I remember after like hours of trying to figure out how to make a game, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to load up the default settings that it gives me. Everything is default and see if there's actually a game here. And it loads up a game with like you doing a thing, but it's basically just you like running around a field. And I think you get into fights, but it's like turn based. I don't even remember.
Hmm.
It's crazy, crazy stuff. I don't, but that's a weird one. I genuinely don't know if like I would enjoy that now. Definitely not on the
Hmm.
PS2, but like that is a game I don't know if I would hate now.
I mean, to my knowledge, RPG Maker, well, you make RPGs, so it's kind of odd you'd even consider that a game, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I guess it's just a game for, like a piece of software from my childhood that I have played at one point.
Oh yeah, I gotcha, I gotcha. I mean, I definitely understand that point of it.
Hmm. Yeah. Man, I feel like there's so many other games. I'm trying to find games with interesting stories though, because I've got a million like.
So, well, I remember like there's this one game, right? It's called
Mm-hmm.
Battleship, right?
Okay.
Okay. It's not. It had a mode where basically you can. It was on the Super Nintendo, and you basically had to aim your guns and shoot at other ships while they're shooting at you, kind of deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was a kid, that was the funnest thing in the world, right? I had so much fun playing that. And when I got older, it was just like, okay, I can pick up this pattern really fast. This is really quick to master, actually, kind of deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the mechanics just weren't as interesting, kind of deal.
They didn't
Like
have
child,
as much depth as you expected.
hmm child me thought it was the best thing. Adult me was like, it's okay. It's kind of weird how you can pick up things like that. But then again, you also have other games which actually completely live up to their age, kind of deal, right?
Hmm.
Like you can have other games like I remember when we went back to Metro, and that still felt great, right?
Yeah, and that game is almost, I want to say like 5 to 10 years old at this point, something like that. The original game, at least.
Yeah, it it still feels great after so many years, which is a weird thing. I mean, sure, it had a re-release kind of deal, but the mechanics themselves are still sound,
Yeah, the
right?
design itself isn't bad.
Or like going back to the Super Nintendo Link to the Past, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
go back to that. That still feels like a fresh, awesome game. You
Yeah,
know?
and like an example I would point to, this is like a crazy kind of experience. Is that my sister doesn't play a lot of video games.
Mm-hmm.
She plays like here and there, maybe like if it's introduced to her on her phone, more or less. But she played a ton of the Humongous Entertainment games as a kid. Did you ever play them?
No, I'm not familiar with this.
They're like the Freddy Fish games, the Spy Fox. Not ringing a bell.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
No.
so they're point and click games that are completely animated like a movie more or less. But you go around these environments and there's tons of stuff to click on and you kind of solve a mystery or you do a thing. It's actually really fun.
Okay.
And these are games that I've gone back to and I still enjoy because the point and click puzzle elements are still interesting. And while they're not
Mm-hmm.
like meant for adults, they're relatively simple. They still feel fun and the animation and jokes are still kind of punchy. So it still feels like a good experience to play them. And the reason I bring up my sister is because every once in a while she'll ask me now, like I think the last time she asked me was earlier this year, was like, can we bring them out and play them?
Okay.
It's actually kind of funny because on Steam, I've been looking at their like pack on there because
Okay.
the versions we have are CDs, are actual physical
Mm-hmm.
CDs. So getting them to run on Windows 10, Windows 7, whatever, not easy. Not easy at all.
Mm-hmm.
But at least with the Steam version or the GOG version, they run just immediately. They just boot and run, and they run perfectly fine.
Okay, I got you.
So those are games I would point to from my childhood that I think I'd still go back to. I'd still go back to every once in a while. Certainly, if someone hadn't played it, like I'd love to show them because they're such weird oddities and like cool kind of games by themselves.
I get you. Yeah,
Hmm.
that does sound like a bunch of fun. At least being able to see what they are.
Yeah.
Hmm. I think for me, like a lot of the old games I can't go back to, right? Um, they're mostly games that they, they their mechanics just at a core level just don't hold up just because of how they feel, right? But the ones that do hold up are things that were tightly developed, right? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Their mechanics are more timeless than something like
Mm-hmm. Then like maybe something like from Lords of the Realm or something along those lines.
yeah. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of an example in particular. So, why do you think something like Pac-Man
Okay.
has existed for such a long time, but something like the original Donkey Kong really isn't around anymore? Even though they were both huge arcade games around the same time, Pac-Man you can still find everywhere, but the older Donkey Kong game you just can't.
You know what I think it is actually? I
Hmm.
think it's the ease of use, right? Pac-Man is very simple to understand. It feels good to play initially, right? And you can pretty much get a little distance in it no matter what. I mean, like the controls are simple; they're not very complicated, right?
Hmm.
They're very easy to pick up, right? And for the most part, they're very responsive too. You're not having the like, nothing's going to be finicky on you kind of deal. But when you come to something like Donkey Kong, right? Sure, it's simple to pick up, right? But you're pretty much just going down one. You have one direction to go in. You don't really feel like,
There's room for improvisation.
yeah, right. You're pretty much gonna be facing the same level each time. Ooh, there's another arrow. Cool. Well, the ghosts kind of feel semi-random, right? So like you feel like it's possibly a different challenge each time. Maybe
Hmm.
that has something to do with it.
Maybe, but I feel like it's multi-layered. What makes a game timeless versus a game that's not going to be remembered for a very long time. I don't think Muppets License to Croak is going to show up 10 years from now and be like a HD re-release.
Hmm.
While we can find HD re-releases of any number of games now, especially on the PC, where just any game can get re-released back to life.
Hmm.
Like I forget if we talked about it on the show, but I've been playing Super Noah's Ark 3D, a game that I never played as a kid. I never knew existed until it was a joke when I was like an adult.
Hmm.
Yet it got a re-release on Steam, so I've been playing it.
It is kind of weird how things can get a second life sometimes.
Yeah, just about, just about.
Hmm. Oh, you know what was another fun one that's kind of hard to go back to? I recently went back to RuneScape.
Oh yeah, how was that?
It was miserable.
Now, just to clarify, are you talking about original RuneScape or the updated version that they've had?
Updated actually.
Hmm.
Yeah, it basically, you know what the thing is, right? This is like the classic case for me, that sometimes things just don't work well anymore. For RuneScape, right? It used to be all about just kind of go whatever path you want, just kind of up your levels and all that kind of stuff, and skills that you thought were cool and all that kind of thing. But now as an adult, that shit's a chore. I don't have time to do all this stuff, and it's going to take literally forever. Whereas a kid, I definitely had way more time.
I mean, can't we just expand that to all MMOs?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I do find that's my biggest issue.
I mean, that's just my general feelings towards MMOs, period. But I get entirely what you're saying, where it's
Hmm.
a game that is built from the base up that to grind has its player base, but it's kind of divisive depending who's playing it. If you have the time,
some people definitely more willing to put in a grind than others.
yeah, exactly. Like there was a release lately for a game called Slime Rancher. I've actually been looking kind of forward to it because the game looks adorable and like it sounds kind of like a neat concept. But most reviews are saying that it is a great game if you are okay with a crazy grind. With a
Yeah.
crazy kind of grind. Um, yeah, with a crazy kind of grind that keeps you going, but you can feel it. You
Mm,
can feel it kind of kick in.
yeah, I
So,
definitely have less of a tolerance for that.
so it has its player base, but at the same time, that RuneScape on the bigger scale for myself, MMOs. If you tell me a game takes a crazy amount of time, maybe it isn't for me.
Yeah, the only games I can feel that really do well for me, at least have some sort of grind, are games like Fallout. Or at least then, you feel like you can have a little fun with it. And, games that are more story-driven, like The Witcher, which have, like, insane amount of time that you can spend in them. But I know, speaking of older things, I know there was one other thing we wanted to talk about as well, right? Some
Yeah,
of the
what's up?
older chat programs we used to use, like, I know I used to use TeamSpeak and Skype before I jumped over to Discord.
Don't get me started. This is I I don't understand why it took so long for someone to make a very good voice over IP system. Like a decent talk to your friends kind of deal. I mean, my general experience is that I went from Skype, which Skype uses a ton of resources,
Hmm.
a massive amount of resources on your computer to run. And then you run a game on top of that, and your computer suddenly chugging crazy amounts. To TeamSpeak shortly because I needed a place to use. I needed a program to use to talk to my friends, and that you need to actually pay to have a server to talk to people.
Hmm.
And then I went to Discord basically, which I have no big overlying problems with. That's the crazy thing to me.
On a side note, we are not paid by Discord.
We're not. I would take their money though. It's crazy to me though that like it took so many tries to finally get this kind of thing right. A program that doesn't take a massive amount of resources to use. You could talk to your friends super easily, like
Hmm.
incredibly easily. And it even has community features built into it, which I never really even knew that I wanted.
That's
And it
for
just
sure.
happens to be here. It's crazy to me that there are so many programs that just got it almost right.
Hmm.
How about you? What's your story with these kind of programs?
See, for me, right? I always enjoyed Skype because you can kind of do like the video feed. And honestly, if I do want to see somebody face to face, I actually still do Skype. But I'm pretty
Hmm.
much not doing anything else if I'm doing that, right?
Yeah.
Because I know like Facebook, they have a video call as well, but dear God, it's worse than Skype.
Honestly, anytime I ever get a call from anyone on Facebook, I don't understand what's going on. I
Hmm.
have very, very little tolerance for that. I look at my phone, it's like, you're calling me over Facebook Messenger. I'm just not answering you.
Just call my phone.
Just call my phone, text me, message me on Messenger, or, I mean, if you want to video chat with me, well, I mean, I don't have too many options for that. Just don't do
Hmm.
that. Don't ask me to do that. You don't have many good reasons to voice chat me.
Honestly, man, the only reason I pretty much come with voice chatting for somebody is it's I'm flirting with a girl. Other than that, I don't got many other reasons.
Yeah, yeah. So it's crazy to me how long it took them to kind of just set all this up in the right
Mm-hmm.
way. But I'm so happy it's set up. I'm so
Mm-hmm.
happy it's this nice. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and the good thing is, like, I feel like TeamSpeak was like a nice jump, was like a nice in between Discord and Skype, because TeamSpeak is very simple, right? As long as somebody paid for the server, everyone was good, right?
Yeah.
But Discord has a way nicer interface that feels way easier to use.
Yeah. If you want to join a chat, if you want to join like somebody's Discord, you just send them a link. That's all you have to do. TeamSpeak, I don't even remember. You have to send them like an IP and a server password and like the name of the server.
Mm-hmm.
It's oh my god, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a little bit more work. It was like the nice in between what was like kind of like, okay, I can pretty much only talk to like one, maybe two people. Okay, four people, that's a lot, but we're gonna burn my computer today. So TeamSpeak, which somebody had to put the money up front for, pretty much to talk to everybody, and you can talk to a bunch of people at the same time, which was kind of nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But somebody still had to put in that upfront cost kind of deal, and then you kind of move on to Discord, which pretty much has a donation model, right?
Yeah, they it's completely free and you just donate if you want to.
Mm-hmm. But that does worry me a tad, to be honest, right? I don't know. I do get worried that at one point it's not going to be enough, for just the donations kind of deal. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm always a little leery about things that are absolutely free. You know what I mean?
I hear you. I hear you. I.
Like that's a huge temptation, maybe to sell some personal info or whatever. I mean, Facebook does it, so.
Well, if I could see Discord going the route of setting up a premium kind of service where it's like, oh, we've introduced video chatting for all you and your friends, but you
Mm-hmm.
need to pay us a $5 subscription fee for it, which I mean isn't unreasonable, and some people would pay it. I wouldn't myself, but I mean, I think there's models they could do to make that kind of thing happen
Mm-hmm.
if they ever needed the money. But with how popular it is, it's kind of the argument people have about Steam,
Mm-hmm.
which Steam, some people, I mean, no better word for fearmonger that, oh, what happens if Valve goes bankrupt? What happens if Steam doesn't exist anymore? It's like, well, I mean, they're doing incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a worry you need to have at this exact moment.
Yeah,
Sure,
that's true.
it's nice to theorize, but like, let's worry about that if it comes to be.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's just more of like one of those like little fear things you have in the back of your head kind of deal. But it is just kind of neat that that's just kind of how things have moved, from Skype to TeamSpeak, and my personal journey. And I think you told me at one point that you did Ventrilo for a little bit.
A little bit, because a lot of the games I played, when I was like in high school and beginning of college, like was like, oh, we have a Ventrilo server, and I'm like, okay, I guess I can try and figure this. Oh, nope, I can't. Okay, you know what? Back to Skype. It was short lived, but it certainly was a case of like, it bothered me that nobody did it right, and I think honestly, if I had any kind of knowledge of how to make this kind of program work, I would have tried to do it a long time ago because it's bothered me that long
I got you.
that
I
it's
think
been this
it's
complicated.
more of along the lines of somebody has to mess up a few times before it gets any traction kind of deal. You know,
Yeah,
it just takes time for things to get better and better. I mean, just think how expensive cell phones were when they first came out, and how little they did compared to now.
that is true. The longer that things exist, it um
people
the
get
better
better.
it becomes.
Yeah, just people get better at coding. More people realize they need it. And, a lot more resources are put into it instead of just like one random dude just kind of putting shit together. It's now, hey, there's many people trying to get this right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think we did want to try and go on to something else, right?
Yeah, we wanted to talk briefly about one more very nerdy topic.
Oh
One more
yeah,
very nerdy topic.
bring on the nerd.
If we're gonna round out the trifecta of nerddom, which is video games, online voice over IP systems, and Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Rule number one: you're never making that noise again.
I think we're on rule 5 by now, actually.
I'll write. I will be writing them down eventually. So, we wanted to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, we've talked about that on the show before, right? Just Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
in general?
kind of briefly though. Nothing like in depth.
Yeah, we were looking to talk about a very specific thing for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, just a tad. We sort of enjoy dice, right?
Dice are fun. That's half the fun of Dungeons and Dragons, really. It's just rolling the dice itself.
Mm-hmm. And I've been kind of coming to a realization that, okay, so first of all, there's two types of dice that I'm familiar with, right? We should clear that out of the way right now. And yes, this is what we're talking about.
And there's what?
And this is what we're talking about.
Yes, dice for Dungeons and Dragons, or
yeah.
dice in general, really.
Yeah. What sort of dice are better to use for Dungeons and Dragons, right? And it's kind of caught between two right now that I find very interesting. You have the standard like D20, and the different other sided dice, right? And then this Star Wars kind of role-play game came out, and it has this unique set of dice, right? That are all based off of strengths, basically successes, failures, chances, and stuff like that, right? That was probably a very poor way of explaining it.
No. It made sense.
Okay.
In a way.
I'll take that, I think. But yeah, instead of like being based off of like a D20, you have a success dice, which basically give you a chance to succeed. You have the crit dice, which allow you to have a good chance to basically tell the DM what you're doing, or the failure dice, which basically is to say, hey, you really messed up kind of deal.
Yeah, it's essentially a boiling down of dice down to passing, failing, or I'm guessing there's like critical pass or critical failures
that's
on
the
there
gist
as
of
well.
it. The dice boil down to, do you fail or do you succeed? And certain dice allow you to critically succeed or critically fail, right? That's the gist of it. Thank you for evening out my words there.
That's fine. So you're kind of saying that you enjoy this system more than a traditional dice system.
The more and more I thought about it, the more and more I feel like this is how it kind of should be, right? Because all that really does matter is if something passes or fails, for the most part. There's very few things that you need anything else for, right? And even for those few things, right, they allow you... That accounts for it, too, because, you could succeed, but, have disadvantage and stuff like with these dice, right? And I feel like it thematically works better with most role-play systems, the more and more I've been thinking about it.
I'm going to disagree, but here, convince me about like how you think success-fail dice kind of like work better than the traditional numbers.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? I feel like they work great with things that are basically just going to be RP based. They don't necessarily work as well with like tactical grid style fighting, right? But I feel like they work better with RP style things, right? were things where you don't have things as that require small variables, right? Where like if somebody's shooting a gun at you, right, you either hit or you miss, and
Right.
this thing's. And I doubt you're a space marine, right? Most times we don't deal with space marines,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that kind of system works better, right? Where there's not really much armor around, and even if it does, you can just add somebody, give them some difficulty to shoot at you, kind of deal, you know?
Mm.
Ooh.
It, I don't know. I guess I'm not entirely sold on the idea. Because the problem I see immediately with pass-fail dice
Okay.
is wiggle room with, or not wiggle room, character variety.
Okay.
So let's say you're playing a Dungeons and Dragons game,
Okay.
and you have two people in a party. You have a fighter and you have a rogue, and you come up against a door that's locked.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the fighter and the rogue both want to take a chance at breaking the door, unlocking and lockpicking the door.
Okay.
With a pass-fail dice, that doesn't really account for skills
Ah,
as much as something like a d20 would, which has a flat number that you add to it.
but it does. That's the thing, right? See, for this person that's more skilled in it, right? They still have like attributes which allow them to roll more, more good dice kind of deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody that has high dexterity, for instance, would get a chance to roll, you know, like a certain number of like the success chance dice, right? And depending on the challenge, they would get more of the um, basically the failure dice, right? So that's how it divvies up skill that way. So you're actually rolling more dice, right? Per what sort of skills you have, and if you're really good in a skill, right, you get a chance to roll one of the critical success dice with it, so you can get a chance to kind of instant work through it.
Yeah,
So it does account for skill that way. It does it in a different fashion.
I feel like all it's doing is somewhat tipping the odds in the favor of the person. Because here's what I'm imagining happens. It comes down to the player to lockpick the door, and you have one instance where the rogue goes to unlock the door, and you have the one instance where the fighter unlocks the door. Now, in a traditional system, let's say it was a 15 to break the door open to lockpick the door. The rogue goes up to it with a d20 and rolls a d20 and rolls a 10, and they have a lockpicking skill of 8. So they add 8 to 10, 18. They've successfully done it. In the fighter rolls a 10 as well, but they have 0 lockpicking skill, so they just roll 10, so they fail.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like with this system, it's simplifying that to
I mean, it's pretty much simplifying it to what do you roll more of? Do you roll more successes or more failures?
I'm trying to find the words exactly to say what I'm thinking. It feels like you're basically just giving the player more. You're making it flashier by giving them more dice. But all you're doing is taking the odds that they would have in the other game and just giving them a handful of dice to do it with. And also then as a DM you have to account for how many successes count as lockpicking versus how many non-successes.
Mm-hmm.
And is there an instance where the fighter can unlock the door versus the thief? Versus the rogue? And is there an instance where the rogue rolls 3 success dice and 3 failure dice versus the fighter who just rolls 1 success dice to do it?
I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, the difficulty wouldn't change no matter who's trying to roll against it, right? The difficulty would still the same, right? It's just that the
Mhm.
rogue has a way higher chance of getting through it, right? It basically does allow for any class to do anything, right? I mean, they're severely less likely to do more complicated things,
Right.
right? But I feel like it is basically doing the same thing, right? With different dice. It is a little more flashier. That I do agree with. I just kind of like the feel of it though a little bit more. Like instead of working with numbers, right? You're just working. Well, did it work or did it not work? Kind of deal. Or did it work or how well did it work? Right? Like it gives you like a more clear kind of distinction of hey, what actually happened here instead of like let me fumble through all these numbers. I know what the numbers are. The numbers are the dice. Instead of having comparing the actual numbers of your character versus the challenge and such. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It kind of gives it a different feel of things.
I think this would work really well in a board game versus a tabletop game. That's where I think my thoughts are coming down on it. I see this working incredibly well for a game like Axis and Allies.
Okay.
Like basically a dice set that just says yes or no. You did it or you didn't.
Yeah, but
But
here's the thing, right? Like it has different variables of yes, kind of deal, right? Like you can have like on a single die, right? You would have
mm,
like maybe like two successes on it. You would have a blank space because you have a chance of you not doing it as well, doing it, right? You have like an advantage point, which basically means you could set you up for the next round. Kind of how well did you succeed? You also have like a single success die on there, right? It has a combination of success and advantage, right?
mm,
So it essentially has like different possibilities for each dice, and it's the reverse for like the for the failure dice. So essentially, it has like all the variables there for you. It's just accounted differently.
I feel like something is lost though with this.
Okay.
Like I feel like genuinely when you do this, when you change over from a number system to just a checker, like a thumbs up or a thumbs down system, you lose something probability wise.
Okay.
For one thing, actually, I mean, it becomes much harder as a DM to kind of fudge numbers. Like for example, if a player is trying to hit something and they roll all failures, and the player is going to be murdered by this orc, it's harder to say like, oh well, I mean, you rolled just enough to hit to he rolled lower than you, so you're not going to get murdered. If the player rolls all critical failures or all like just failures in general, they're getting hit. I think that's a point to bring up on top of this like pass fail
You
kind of
you
system.
are absolutely right about that though. Like it definitely does put more control into the dice.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm coming from where I say like this would work really well for a board game, where a board game has very set, concrete rules of this is what you're doing, this is what you need to do,
I feel
X,
like
Y, and Z. But a tabletop feels so shiftable. It feels like you can mess with the rules a bit and like change things if you need to.
I mean you can still do it this way, right? There's still ways to do that, right? I guess it requires you to have a little more prep work beforehand.
I feel like it's really hard to change the outcome of somebody rolling all passes or all failures.
I mean that can happen no matter what, right? If they roll all failures, then that's just what happened. They
Oh,
failed,
absolutely,
right? I mean
absolutely.
like you can still roll ones and twos like on a d20, right? You can't roll a two and be like, oh, you hit the boss monster, right? Like no,
Yeah, of
that's
course.
essentially the same thing, right? All failures would be essentially as rolling like really low on a d20.
But I feel like with a d20, if you roll a 3 or a 4, there's
Mm-hmm.
a chance you can, behind your DM screen, say, oh man, I rolled lower than that. Guess you're not dead in a pile of gore on the ground. Versus the player rolling all failures and then looking at you and being like, oh man, I rolled -1 successes. I guess you're okay. It's like, no, that doesn't happen. And I
Hmm.
know that's not a big problem because a good DM shouldn't have to change the rules too much, but
Hmm.
it still feels like it's railroading you into one thing to say you did it or you didn't.
But I feel like that allows people to plan accordingly, though, right? Like they're not going to take on a challenge they know that they're probably not going to be able to do. Like if they're skilled in that thing, they're going to have confidence that, you know what, I have enough dice to take on most challenges, so this shouldn't be a problem. They're not going to try and do, like, you're not going to have somebody that's really strong, right? Uh, Try and move dexterously through the air, right? He's gonna try and lift doors. He's gonna try and punch things, right? You're not gonna have somebody who's like who's more skilled in, like, talking to people, trying to just, like, punch people in the face. He's gonna be more of like a talker type of character, right? That's what you have people pursue things that they're actually good with, right? Because they know they have a very low chance of doing the other thing. So you kind of help them specialize in a way. And I see that
Hmm.
as a good thing overall with character creation and dealing with dice, because knowing that there is just a set number of success, or for a failure kind of deal, I feel like help things a lot.
I don't know. It feels like just painting something a different color again to me. It feels like just not changing it really, but still changing it negatively.
I would agree with the point of that it definitely is just changing a color, right? Like
Yeah.
honestly, there's not a huge difference here other than appearance,
Hmm.
really. Like that's really all you're changing, in all truth here. Like this isn't like some grandiose thing that's like going to change like it completely. This is more of just like what coat of paint do you prefer,
Hmm.
kind of
Oh,
deal.
also something else I just realized. Unless a player is absolutely terrible at something, and I mean like has more failure dice than success dice when they roll, it kind of gives players a feeling that everyone can try something.
I mean, to be
Like,
fair, like that's true. They just have to roll the appropriate, dice for it. There is a good chance they could fail for it.
right, but I feel like if there's a case of like that locked door again, and there's a party of 6 people,
Hmm.
and the rogue fails, then the fighter walks up and tries it because they say, I've got 1 die, as long as I roll a success, we open the door, so why not? So they roll, they don't do it. Okay, cool.
Well,
So the
yeah,
cleric walks up and they're like, yeah, I've got 1 die, I can try it, and they roll the die and they don't get it. I
yeah,
feel
but
like
you
there's
you
something discouraging to have every player try it if a player comes up to it and says, oh, I've got a -4 to lockpicking, I'm not going to be able to do this.
well, here's the thing, right? I mean, just like in a regular game, right? If the first dude rolls his d20 kind of deal, right? He fails. Sure, somebody else can try it, but the next person's probably gonna have negatives that give it a shot, though, right? I mean, like, there's a chance that while doing this, they could end up breaking the lock, and they can't lockpick it anymore. See, that's the thing. That also accounts for that. Like, you can end up failing so badly at picking that lock that you just break the lock, and you're not getting through that way now.
Yeah, yeah, that is true.
And it helps to account for those sort of things. And that's what I kind
Hmm.
of like about it.
Yeah, I guess it is a way of doing it. It's just it feels like to me
You
it
know what?
doesn't feel like a clean fit for a tabletop game.
You know
That's
what we're
all.
gonna have to do? We're gonna have to do a free session where we just do a fun little session of just battling things out. I feel like we'll do that over the week.
All right, I'd be game for that.
Mm-hmm.
We can test results on it, see how this kind of stuff would work out.
Mm-hmm. I'm willing to give that a shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I
We
didn't
just we just we just talked about dice. Damn.
I didn't even get a chance to talk about D100s and how stupid they are.
They are stupid, but they're adorable.
They're circles. They're just circles that you roll.
I mean,
Why?
that's kind of fun, right? They exist on phones for me. They're not a physical object.
Oh god, don't get me into phone rolling. And I don't like it.
I don't like it either. It's all good. I feel like cheaters.
I mean, that's genuinely what it comes down to. It's just that, like, I trust seeing a die roll in front of me more than a player saying, "Oh, I rolled a crit," and their phone is just facing towards them, looking directly in the eye and saying, like, "Yep, I rolled a critical." I'm like, "Oh yeah, let me see it," and then they turn their phone and they're like, "Oh no, it's closed out of the app. Oops!" Like, with a die, it's just there.
Yeah,
I can see
that is kind of nice.
Ugh, God. What is? No, I'll just keep going if I do this. I'll just be like, why does this dice exist? Why do we have it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do we have a D12?
D12 is used for things that than D10s.
But like, why don't you just use more D10s then?
Because you want to feel unique with your item.
Oh God, what is a D5? Stop! Get
Hey,
off a screen!
stop.
Get it off a screen! It's ugly.
Stop Googling things. That's bad for your health.
It's scary. It's so scary. How does this dice work? What is a D5?
It's ugly. That's what it is. Ah,
Very. Yeah, right?
why'd you make me Google that, Drew?
It looks so weird. I don't like it.
I don't appreciate you anymore. Anyway,
I'm scared.
well, that's pretty much all we had for today, right?
What does a D2 dice look like? Oh, they actually look all right.
It's a quarter. A D2 is a quarter, you shit lord. Like, I want to slap you from across the mic now.
So half of that laugh was just how you said that. The other half was literally when I googled D2 dice. Some cool dice, like if you actually Google D2 dice, some cool looking dice kind of come up. But one of the Google results is literally a quarter.
Yes, Drew.
Oh my God.
I'm not sure I'm supposed to feel about you right now, to be honest.
I don't really know either, honestly.
Well, this was a blank space, folks.
This was a blank space.
And we filled it in with quarters.
Oh God, what is a D7? Oh God, no!
Stop it! Stop it! Ooh. Stop it!
Yo, what is this? What is this D60? What? No, I'm done. Stop. Cut. Stop.
Cut.
Done.